Welcome everyone to our special event focusing on the future of the online educator. Today we'll talk about the new role of the online educator, exciting opportunities for current teachers who can actually become an online educator, and the tools that are required for successful online teaching. Plus, we're going to chat about the upcoming ASU+GSV conference. Why bring up ASU+GSV? Well, all of these fine people, our panelists, are Elite 200 finalists heading into the conference. So that's very interesting. Make the most of your time, please, here. The chat is the perfect place to network with others and maybe even make some new friends. We've all done it here. Please use the Q&A box so our panelists can easily field your questions. Don't forget actually to switch the box above where your chat from panelists and attendees to everyone, so everyone can see your conversations. It's a community. Please be sure also to join our Facebook community of cohort-based learners and inventors. So before we get to talking, what we should do is meet Dotan Tamir. He's the CEO of Click2, and he's actually my co-host as well. DT, welcome.
Hello, hello. Happy to be here. Thanks to all the great panelists that have joined us today.
Yeah, totally. Can you believe it? And we'll all talk about this, but 2 weeks from now, we're all going to be in San Diego, at this major conference, which is going to be very exciting. So for now, Dotan, anything you want to talk about in terms of the online educator to kick us off?
The online educator. Well, this is going to be an interesting discussion here. I spoke to all the panelists, so I know. And I think we are in a very unique point in time where education is, how they say it in the conference, it's on the edge. Things are shaking and moving in this space. Everyone can now become an educator. Educator's role is changing, and the learner has different demands. So a lot of things are happening. And I think each panelist here today has a different point of view on that change. So that will be interesting to hear.
Okay, well, let's get going. We are first going to kind of explain how this whole thing is going to work. The way we do this is that we have our panelists, we give them a question, they have a few minutes to answer it, and then Dotan or anybody's going to kind of push back. Of course, as Dotan pointed out before we came on the air here, anybody can disagree. We're good with disagreements. That's all good here. That encourages the learning and the discussion. We're going to start a little bit out of the way I had planned this, but we're going to start with Issac Elnekave, because Isaac's got to run. He's going to have to explain why he's got to run. But Issac is a serial entrepreneur currently focused on his app, One Question, which requires kids to answer a grade level, curriculum aligned question to access screen time. So Issac, I'm going to give you your question. And then of course you're going to have to explain why you got to run. What new opportunities has online learning brought to educators in terms of reach and career? You are on the clock.
Thanks, mate, and a pleasure to be here. I think in order to sort of answer that question, at least for me, I sort of need to step back in terms of thinking, what is an educator? Is it a teacher? Is it a subject matter expert? Is it a tutor? Because I think that in the era of online education, we're looking to completely redefine what we think of as educators. And a lot of that is being fueled by the creator economy, which in 2021 alone received nearly $1.3 billion in funding. That's almost 3 times more than 2020. And what we're finding is that teachers are no longer limited to the 4 walls of a classroom or are bound by the pedigree or the degree that they received at university. Maybe they don't even hold a degree. The reality is the teachers, educators, subject matter experts are building their own brand. And they're looking for platforms that can help them reach their potential and reach future students locally and globally. So I think that what we're seeing with the rise of the creator economy and the rise of online learning is the ability for teachers to reach a much wider platform and engage with students all over the world. And in doing so, begin to find ways to monetize their IP in ways that, we just did not think was possible in the past. A good example is one question, where, as you say, kids answer and engage with educational content in order to earn screen time. I've got 3 kids, so I know that enough experience. Screen time is a major issue for families and for parents. And what we've done is we've figured out a way to gamify screen time, where teachers, or for us, subject matter experts, tutors, tour guides, are able to create micro-educational courses that kids engage with, answer assessment questions, and in doing so, are able to earn screen time. So we're really sort of blending the concept of the educational creator economy and education, along with making screen time more productive. But we're not alone in the space. I think that we've all seen the rise of cohort-based learning. So this is a super exciting time for educators globally, because the opportunities to find and leverage new platforms are just beginning to bubble to the surface. Thanks for that question.
Totally. There's actually a comment here from one of the panelists here. He's in Austin. He or she is in Austin. I think kids get trained to rely on screen time. Kids didn't need screens before they existed. What do you think?
Well, I think that's factually correct. I didn't need a screen when I grew up. But the reality is that kids today are born with screens, and screen time is not the problem. The problem is unproductive screen time, because screens are here to stay, and we're just going to use them more and more. And I'm guilty, just as much as my daughters are guilty, of wasting time on my screen. And so what one question looks to do is not to eliminate screen time. What we're looking to do is to push in more productive moments into your screen time usage. As we push in more productive moments, because time is fixed, something's got to give. And what tends to give is unproductive screen time.
We see that also from the Click2 perspective, where we help companies run live experiences for kids or cohort-based experiences for kids, learning experiences. We see that perfectly, and how kids can turn their screen time into an actually social time and growth and learning and interaction with other kids with the same mindset or different mindsets. I agree with you completely. As parents really appreciate productive screen time. I think parents still need to get more educated about what their kids are doing on the screen. Not always they know to evaluate what is a productive screen time, what is not. Not everything that looks productive is actually productive, and vice versa.
Laura Vaigorova is the founder of SmarTestPrep, an AI-based platform that provides college advice and counseling, test prep services, and more to international students. She's in Kazakhstan. She's also on the move, but she's going to be here for the full discussion here, because she's headed to the States for our ASU+GSV conference. Laura, your question: how is AI transforming the online teacher's role? You're on the clock. You got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Josh, for the question. Well, the first and the main thing that AI is doing right now, it is filling in the gap between learning and teaching. AI offers personalization, we all know that, efficiency, and it streamlines admin works. For example, in our case, what we're trying to do is not to launch a fully, automated AI-based learning, but AI-assisted learning, so that AI can adapt to every individual student's needs, free up the teacher's time by streamlining administrative tasks, and do much more. There are so many things that I can do. For example, right now, what we are trying to do is to free up the teacher's time in order to create a personalized learning plans. This is what our platform is about. It builds personalized learning plans for a lot of students, for more than 500 students monthly. And it is all done by an AI-based learning system. So the teacher does not have to, spend all of his time doing that and only spend his time teaching, because want it or not, for now, AI cannot fully replace, human interaction, fully replace teachers. So I do believe that AI could help, normalize the fact that the teacher does not have to deal with administrative work and spending time on class prep, but only on teaching. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Yeah.
I hope it fully answers your question.
That absolutely shows how AI can transform the online teacher's role. Dotan, we talked about this yesterday. What do you think about it?
I always believe in human interaction. That's my perspective. I'm a little worried about how AI can replace maybe too much of human interaction. We don't want the kids to grow by talking to robots, right? We want them to talk to each other, even if the robot has all the knowledge and can teach us everything. I think we learn better by interacting with each other. I don't think it's contradicting what Laura is saying. I'm just saying that I'm looking at the worrying sides of things. And of course, I agree that AI can help the educator and teachers do basically taking over their unproductive time or the time that they spend on things that they don't need the skills anymore. They can actually focus on teaching or interacting with the students.
Sounds like Laura and Isaac are saying, hey, we're moving forward. The world is moving forward. Let's do it, but let's also be smart about it. Isaac, does that sound about right?
Yeah, it is. And I gotta say, I share the same concern as Dotan does. I mean, we deploy AI within one question in order to be able to approximate the students' areas of strength and weakness in terms of the curriculum. And we battle with this internally a lot because trying to figure out where a student is not a pure math. And let's face it, AI is almost purely math. I mean, it's a decision tree. But kids today are growing and they're evolving from a physiological perspective, which also impacts their ability to learn and retain information. They're evolving psychologically. And I think that it's become, I don't believe that AI today, or at least the AI that I know, and I'm not an expert in the field, really has the ability to blend everything in to be able to provide the correct approximation. It's easier, I believe, in the space to say, okay, this is a medical problem, and based on AI, here's what we've seen in the past, and here's what we can see in the future. But when we're talking about kids and learning and developing, I'm just worried that we can get a lot of false positives or false negatives from the AI application. And I'll confess, we struggle with that internally.
Fair enough. Do you have a response there, Laura?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, sometimes AI does not work properly because there's always human bias, Human bias taints the data, which affects the algorithms and, the outcomes of the AI system or AI algorithm. So we also need to be mindful of that we humans train the computer to teach our kids or whoever. And yeah, so for now, I think there is no time for us to worry yet. AI will not be replaced, at least fully, by humans, because there's always this bias.
Fedor, you want to say something, then we'll properly introduce
you. I just also wanted to ask about this ethical aspect of the AI and the outputs. How do you see it, and what are your thoughts about it?
Back to you, Laura.
That's a very difficult question. Well, I don't personally see, an ethical issue with the existing AI because it does not go against the legislation or the allowed. So we should be fine with that. But if you mean like if AI becomes a super brain that can understand and read our emotions, that can, improvise and go against humans, if that's what you mean by, the ethical issue, then I do not think that it will happen, at least in the near future, as it is extremely difficult because we humans still can make more, relevant cognitive and social connections. And now we don't know how to teach AI to do that. So I don't really personally see any, ethical issue with that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Only time will tell. But honestly, this is a really good conversation because, AI might be the future of the online educator. So it's great that we've drilled down. I'm going to move us to Fedor Kovalev. Fedor is the founder of Magic Educator, a service that provides teachers with lesson planning support through research, smart recommendations, tips, and more. Your question: What types of online tools can support educators as they teach digitally?
Yeah, so I think there are different multiple categories of online tools that support teachers. And you can basically bucket them in three. It's learning management systems like Nearpod, Google Classroom, Schoology, and so on, lots of them. There are also classroom management tools like Clever, PowerSchool, Chalk, and others. And there are also, I call them advanced delivery systems like Kahoot, Quizlet, Zoom, also video platforms and others. And I think in this current shift to remote, we saw lots of popularity gained among these video platforms, quizzes, and others among teachers. And I think these tools can significantly increase students' engagement during not only the remote set, but also in the classroom offline too. I think those tools can definitely enhance the learning process. But I also see that there is another next generation of tools that are helping teachers grade, create lessons, and also evaluate students' performance. Some of these tools are based on AI. And I think what Laura is doing and what Issac is doing, it also lays in, I think these are next generation tools. So for example, I don't know, for example, GradeScope, one tool that we saw, it crunches handwriting PDFs and digitizes the paperwork and helps teachers save time on the grading. For example, Curriculate, another tool, it helps, it also uses AI and it helps teachers make a quiz or a lesson plan out of the book. So you just paste your link to the book or paste your PDF or an article, and it will automatically generate a quiz or activity for the lesson. So I think what we are also doing at Magic Educator, we see that there are lots of videos, lots of articles, and lots of educational content that is really hard to find, and we are making algorithms for finding this content, also understanding if this specific video or this specific article is going to teach something a student. And as well as generation, AI helps us with generation of pedagogical tips based on different frameworks like Understand by Design and others. So overall, I think AI is going to revolutionize the space with tools for students. For example, on the other side, there is a tool for generation of essays, for example, with also involving AI. So I think teachers need to arm themselves with the latest tech so they can keep up with the innovation, because on the student side, on the parent side, there are also tools that are enhancing the learning process.
Dotan, anybody want to react?
Yeah, well, I think Fedor gave us a index of 10 different tools there. It's great. I speak to educators, and almost every conversation I find out about a new tool. It's something new that came out, or something that they like to use on their Zoom, whatever, or with their students, and it supports my feeling, or everybody's here feeling, that there is a revolution going on. People use the last 2 years to build so many tools that can help. The question that I still have is, do educators really use those? What percentage of educators are really open to use those digital tools? What percentage of educators are left behind, they're not using? And how can we help the majority of the educators to move forward and use all those tools? And I think that's one of the challenges I think SungAe has a lot to talk about, probably when she's answering your next question.
And thank you, SungAe, for being the most patient and smiling panelist we've ever had, who's kind of listening. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you 2 questions. You're going to get a twofer for all that nice listening that you've done. SungAe, thank you for joining us. She's the founder of Rock by Rock, a project-based learning platform for kids that is cognitively aligned to development and offers live instructors to teach 21st century topics. She's joining us from Queens, New York. 2 questions for you. How is education benefiting from embracing online opportunities? What do you think still needs to be solved? So no good deed goes unpunished. You got 2 questions.
Thanks, Josh, and really great to meet everybody and excited to be here today. I think that definitely we have seen a massive shift, right? And so one of the benefits of embracing the online opportunities for educators has been what Issac named, right? Around like how we're pushing the needle of how we think about educators today. And that, educator as facilitator versus educator as sage, where the burden to deliver all of this knowledge is becoming much less important. And we're seeing traditional educators really see like, wow, how can I be a guide? How can I leverage technology tools like Fedor was naming, right? To facilitate really strong learning for kids. So I think it's exciting to see how technology is like moving us beyond this like stand and deliver traditional sense of teaching and really opening our eyes to the multitude of different types of roles that educators can play. So that's one of the benefits. I think the other is access and equity. I know Dotan and I talked about this a little bit one-to-one, where it's like, gosh, it's so cool to see that you can access so much beyond your classroom now. You can access a diverse set of real-world experts who can reflect the diversity of your kids. You can serve live teachers as like co-teachers. There's all these virtual field experiences, right? That can be really game-changing for kids who don't have that kind of access. I know for us, we work with a lot of rural communities, and many of them in the US have said like, gosh, like the real world virtual field trips that you bring and these real world experts have been amazing for our kids who don't ever leave the zip code, right? And they don't have the opportunities to like travel the world every summer. And the fact that you're bringing this like COVID specialist from England to like teach them about COVID models, right? It's really cool. And so I think access and equity to me is like super exciting, and we really can see technology as a tool for equity. So I think that's really awesome. And then hopefully maybe AI can also have that lens, right? In terms of like, how do we bring equitable access to kids? In terms of opportunities though, I think, as much as we have all of these new roles, teachers and educators, if you're a tutor, an online teacher, a distant learner, you need support in knowing how to use all of this technology. Having been an educator myself and a school leader, I put on the school leader hat and I'm like, gosh, like there's so much technology now. How do I make sense of all of this? How do I make time for all of this, right? Where does that fit into the instructional model that I'm working from? And I want education to see technology as an opportunity, not as a burden. But I think sometimes it can feel that way if I don't know how to actually leverage the best practices. And does actually technology lead to more quality, holistic instruction? I think all of these new educators will need support in understanding not just like we're replicating rote skill and drill types of worksheets online now, but that we really are thinking about holistically how we're developing kids and how we're developing learning so that it's truly moving the needle in terms of quality instruction and learning.
And it wouldn't be one of these webinars if I didn't bring up one of the articles I've actually printed out. Yes, I do still print out articles. And I think it actually dovetails pretty well with what you're talking about. This is, the title of this is Attitude is the Key to Success for Online Learning. And the aha moment, I think, in the article is from this author. It says, it is widely acknowledged that when students are actively engaged in the learning process and get pleasure and instrumental value from what they're doing, they have a propensity to achieve better learning outcomes. So not only do you have to know how to use the technology to be the online educator, oh, by the way, you also have to engage the kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so, what you're saying is so right on, Josh, because if it actually isn't leading to better engagement and better motivation to learn, right? It's actually, we're not reaching our outcomes here with children. So I love that quote that you just said around the attitude towards learning and how both as educators and kids, we need to embrace that, right? As we engage in the new online format.
Attitude is everything. And all of us are going to bring great attitudes to ASU+GSV, the conference that we're going to. Before I roll into that, Isaac, do you have to go?
I just want to say congrats to my fellow panelists. You guys are bloody amazing, working together to make a real impact on education. I'm super humbled to be here. And I really appreciate the opportunity to to meet everyone and to have a bit of a chat. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, we'll see you in California. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Good luck in your next meeting, and see you
Thanks,
soon.
buddy.
And thanks for all the help.
So we're going to talk a little about the conference because this is a community. And I think we have people who are watching who are certainly interested in the future of the online educator, but also just, are thinking about the conference. Maybe they're going, maybe they're not. So I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a roundtable here. This will be the second time for Dotan and I. So we're like, old hat here, but we will give some of our ideas and tips. I'll start with Dotan. You are so good at, studying this stuff before you get on the ground, especially for a conference. So who will you make sure, Dotan, that you want to meet this year at ASU+GSV, and why?
I want to meet SungAe and Laura, and I know Fedor is joining virtually, but it's a good question. I still have some work to do before going to the conference, and make sure I know who exactly I want to meet. Of course, there are meetings planned. We all spoke today about the future of online educator. One thing that I'm eager to explore is how this is all going to connect with the metaverse. My feeling is from watching, how kids interact today, my feeling is that most of the kids and the young adults are already in the metaverse, even if it's not called like that. Their reality is their digital reality. And I think there are going to be some interesting sessions about that in the conference, about the metaverse, Web3. This is going to be interesting to get another perspective on the future of the online education or education as a whole. Mm-hmm.
I fondly call Dotan Future Man. So Future Man is putting his cape on right now. So when you're there, talk to Future Man about that. But if you're not there and you're joining virtually, Fedor, how are you prepping for the conference to make the most of it? Even though I'm assuming you're going to be in Argentina for the conference?
Yeah, so just networking online, and they have a really nice app for the conference where you can also set up a meeting even online and just message through the attendees and panelists.
Yeah, totally. It is a great app, no doubt. We'll be living on it for 4 days. Well, leading up to it, and then those 4 days, and then after. Laura, your prep, I'm sure, has started long ago, and tell us, you're about to get on the plane. So how do you plan to absolutely benefit from traveling all this way for this conference? And tell everybody where you're coming from.
Well, there's so many things that I want to do. I'm not sure if I've managed to do all of them once I arrive, but my first goal, of course, is to network, to meet great people and learn about their experiences. But my another goal is to find a potential investor or, a company that would like to collab with us, someone we can help and someone who can help us. So the first type of people, on my list, of course, are investors, because I will need to talk to them. There are a lot of interesting people. I will also need to connect with several higher education administrators, people representing universities. There will be a lot of people from Latin America, India, Southeast Asia, basically the markets we are scaling to right now, because they provide the majority of the world's international students. So that's that. And I would, of course, love to meet other participants. I connected with several from Finland, from Australia, from various countries. So I went to set up several meetings before the conference and then after the conference, because 3 days is just not enough. And like Dotan said, I would also love to attend sessions, master classes that will be held during the summit, because I'm sure there will be so much new information, so many great things that I've never heard about. So that's the plan. And I also talked to one of the former organizers of the summit, and his motto to me was be aggressive, be as aggressive as you can and talk to as many people as you can. So that's my strategy.
I think we can echo all those. Be aggressive. The only thing I would, and this is crazy, and this is true, like you get really good pens. And Dotan and I, all the time when we're working, I'll be like, you got your pen? So like, you get those pens. I don't actually, the rest of them must be upstairs, but there's so many good things to pick up. So be aggressive when it comes to picking up good stuff. SungAe, is this your first conference? Second? How many have you been to?
Yeah, this is my second. I think it's going to be a busy time. Before I was a panelist, and this time I'm a participant. And I'm a panelist and a participant, but I'm excited for the professional development. To be honest, I'm using this time to like really learn from other people, really learn what's going on in the sector, absorb everything, and just try to be in the moment, right? To celebrate all of this great forward movement in terms of education.
Celebrate good times, right, Dotan? Is that what we're going to do?
I think this is, they just announced that it's sold out. And I think for us as attendees of last year's conference, visiting San Diego when COVID was still around, it's still around, right? But it prevented a lot of people from coming last year. So it was like half full. I think this year it's going to be extremely busy. I agree with what Samir wrote on the chat. Be authentic. I think what you mean, Laura, by being aggressive is what I tend to do by just not being afraid. Just go and talk to people and make sure you talk to the people that you want to talk to. Because if you want, then you lost a really, really great opportunity to meet people in person. I felt last year after being there that I'm right. You have that light bulb that walks with you, and you say, so many assumptions that I had, now I see other people that think the same. And it gives you a lot of energy and great motivation to keep building and keep working. Of course, since then, many things have changed since August to April, like the world is changing so quickly, but you get the really up-to-date version of what's going on in the world at this conference.
Yeah, it's I think it's energy. I think it's motivation for me, at least. And I'm trying to like check in with myself here. It's a little bit of nerves. Like, I feel like we're going to be there in 5 minutes, and there's so much to do, and it's going to be so exciting. So whether you are joining virtually or you're going to be on the ground there in San Diego, let's make a great conference and help each other out as a community. We'll be talking about it on our Facebook community as well. And then we'll be back with our Lifelong Educator show. I believe it's April the 13th. We've got a pretty cool guest that we'll announce. And we'll get more back to kind of one-to-one discussions. But these webinars leading up to this with ASU+GSV have been awesome, because we're just going to get on the ground and be like, we're old friends. We all know each other, from Kazakhstan and Queens and Buenos Aires and Israel, and I'm in Mexico, and Isaac was in California. So thank you, everybody, for joining wherever you are. And we will see you again here on the 13th, and we'll hopefully see you in San Diego on April the 3rd. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.